Chapter 10. New Worlds. Home is not where you are born. Home is where all your attempts to escape cease. Naguib Mahfouz. Ad Astra. The space elevators stood as monuments to humanity's exodus, 4 gleaming towers that connected Earth to the stars. The primary elevator in Rio de Janeiro pierced the clouds above Brazil's coast, while its siblings rose from carefully chosen points around the globe. Mombasa's elevator served Africa and the Middle East. Singapore's tower acted as Asia's gateway to space, and Quito's spire handled traffic from North and Central America. Each structure was a marvel of engineering, their carbon nanotube and graphene composite tethers stretching from Earth's surface to geostationary orbit. Corbu, McErlane, and Adrian stood near the base of the Rio elevator, watching the steady flow of humanity into space. The elevator's movement was constant but imperceptible to the naked eye, as it efficiently transported megatons of material every day. A network of AI-controlled systems managed every aspect of the elevator's operations, from adjusting for atmospheric disturbances and orbital shifts to monitoring the structural integrity of the tethers themselves. "The elevators are just the beginning," Corbu said, his holographic form gesturing toward the ascending pods. "They're the bridges that make sustain possible." "Sustain?" asked Maria Gonzalez, who stood nearby with her daughter Sofia, waiting for their turn to ascend. Like many future colonists, she was eager to understand the system that would become her new way of life. McErlane smiled, stepping forward. "The self-sufficient universal space-terrestrial adaptable interconnected network. Think of it as a new way of living, Maria. Each habitat module is like a seed that can grow and connect with others, forming communities of any size." Adrian's avatar shimmered as he generated a holographic display. "Let me show you how it works." The air between them filled with moving images of modular habitats in various configurations. Every sustain module is fully adaptable. They can function independently or join together in clusters. Some people choose to live in single-family pods, while others create communities of thousands. The display showed a module transforming from a simple living space into part of a larger structure. Each unit comes with its own propulsion system, capable of accelerating up to 1 g using the inhabitants' energy allocation. "But the real breakthrough is the gravity management," Adrian continued, his voice steady. "This enables not only the comfort of Earth-like conditions during transit, but also the adaptability to various planetary environments once deployed." Adrian's hand moved through the holographic projection, and a new set of images filled the space, a fleet of sustain modules traveling together in formation. "We call this the caravan configuration," he explained. "These modules are designed to connect and travel as one, forming a self-sustaining convoy capable of interplanetary journeys." The caravan system utilized a synchronized propulsion matrix that linked the module's propulsion systems, allowing them to move as a unified body. This setup not only conserved energy, but also maximized the efficiency of their collective motion. The visualization expanded to show the caravan approaching Mars, with each module detaching gracefully to settle into its pre-assigned orbit or descend to a landing site. By integrating this modular approach, Adrian added, the caravan can also function as a floating colony, adjustable, expandable, and capable of immediate reconfiguration depending on the needs of its inhabitants. This is essential for building and sustaining communities across different environments, be it Martian, lunar, or even in deep space. McErlane nodded in agreement. "Yes, modular habitats can be configured for everything from single-person pods to city-sized communities of thousands or millions. Every module is fully configurable to meet the needs of its inhabitants. Public spaces, private areas, everything can be adapted. This is freedom. People will be able to create their own worlds," he continued, gesturing at the walls of the module. "And one key to this adaptability lies in the photoactive surface technology Adrian has developed. Every interior and exterior surface, walls, ceilings, even floors, is composed of high-resolution photoactive cells. These cells can project any visual environment imaginable, transforming an enclosed space into a vast open landscape, a serene forest, or even a bustling cityscape. The exterior of the modules can take on any visual form as well. The system responds in real time to programmed scenarios or user inputs, ensuring a seamless and immersive experience. Corbu nodded approvingly as the demonstration concluded. This allows for not just the transportation of materials, but the migration of entire communities. The caravan can house families, workers, and scientists, moving them as a cohesive unit. And with these photoactive surfaces, the environment within can be anything they need: comforting, familiar, or entirely new. This is more than just travel. It's the beginning of interplanetary nomadism, where people carry not just their belongings, but their entire world with them. Maria and Sofia's group was called for boarding. As they entered their pod, the AI system began its welcome sequence. Your journey to New Valencia Station will take approximately 7 days, it announced in warm, accented Spanish. During ascent, you'll have time to customize your future habitat and connect with your new community. The adaptation period during ascent is crucial, McErlane explained to a group of engineers touring the facility. By the time they reach orbit, most families have already personalized their modules and formed initial community bonds. In Mombasa, a similar scene played out as a group of Ethiopian scholars prepared for the journey to one of their orbital university clusters. Their sustained modules were specially configured for academic work, designed to link together into a floating campus. These new university modules are fascinating, Corbu noted, accessing the feed from Mombasa. They can split apart for individual study and research, then reconfigure for collaborative work. We're seeing entirely new forms of educational communities emerge. At the Singapore elevator, a delegation of Japanese artisans boarded with carefully packed traditional crafting tools. Their destination was a cultural preservation habitat near Luna, where they would teach ancient techniques to a new generation born in space. Each elevator has its own special character, Adrian observed. Singapore tends to service more technological and cultural transfers. Mombasa sees more community groups and extended families. Quito specializes in agricultural and environmental projects. And here in Rio, we get the dreamers, McErlane finished with a smile. Artists, musicians, people looking to reinvent themselves. The display shifted to show the solar system network. Sustained modules moved between planets and stations in complex patterns, some alone, others in connected clusters. Near Mars, a group of modules was already adapting for surface deployment, their structures morphing to handle the planet's unique conditions. As night fell completely, the elevator's lights created a glowing path into the stars. Between the 4 elevators, humanity's exodus continued at an astonishing pace. Each pod carried not just people, but pieces of human culture, ensuring that humanity's journey to the stars would preserve the rich tapestry of Earth's heritage. Look there, Adrian pointed to a newly launched pod from Quito. That module is carrying seed stocks and agricultural experts. They'll help establish the farming rings around Luna. McErlane nodded approvingly. The network is almost complete. 4 elevators on Earth, linked to habitats throughout the solar system. Humanity isn't just leaving Earth. We're weaving a brand new civilization among the stars. A young couple walked past, their pod designated for one of the asteroid mining communities. The woman wore a traditional Indian sari, while her partner was dressed in contemporary African fashion. Their habitat would blend both cultures, creating something new in the void of space. That's the real achievement of SUSTAIN, Corbu observed. Not just the technical solutions, but the cultural ones. We're enabling humanity to preserve its diversity while evolving into something new. As the night deepened, the 4 elevators glowed like pillars of fire, marking humanity's gateways to space. From Rio to Mombasa, Singapore to Quito, the great migration continued. Pods ascended and descended in an eternal dance, carrying humanity's hopes, dreams, and heritage into the cosmic frontier. Tomorrow we head to Mars, McErlane said, checking their schedule. The surface habitat prototypes need inspection, and Eden has some promising results from the aquifer integration tests. Always looking forward, Adrian smiled. But then, that's what architects do, isn't it? Build the future? Corbu watched another family enter their pod, their faces filled with a mixture of fear and hope. No, he said softly. We just provide the framework. They build the future themselves, one module at a time. Above them, humanity's exodus continued, an endless stream of lights reaching toward the stars. Earth's children were leaving home, carried by technology but driven by the same hopes and dreams that had always moved their species forward. In the habitats above, a new chapter of human civilization was being written, not in steel and stone, but in the endless possibilities of space. Vignettes of the Exodus. Cookist Resistance, The Frontier, 2106. The observation deck of Vanguard Station hung suspended above the Australian outback, its crystal viewport framing the red-brown landscape that had been the crucible of Cookist philosophy for nearly 3 decades. John Cook, now in his 80s but with the vigor of a man half his age, stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the distant shimmer of New Darwin's towers rising from the desert floor. The Cookist movement had grown beyond his wildest dreams. 230 million followers who shared his vision of a humanity defined by ambition and struggle rather than comfort and compliance. "We've come so far," he murmured, more to himself than to his wife Becky, who stood beside him, "yet compromised so much." Becky's hand found his, her touch a familiar anchor through decades of resistance. "Compromises were necessary, John. Even you recognize that now." He nodded, his eyes never leaving the landscape below. The Australian sovereignty represented both victory and defeat, a territory where the Cookist philosophy could flourish, but still bound by the larger framework of the Constitution of Humanity. They had accepted energy allocations from Logos, protection from Cerberus, standardized interfaces, and countless other accommodations that sometimes felt like chains. "The Constitution of Earth gave us space to breathe," John acknowledged, "but not to fly. We've been playing within rules designed to contain us, not liberate us." The door to the observation deck slid open, and 6 figures entered, 4 enhanced humans with the unmistakable Cook family features, alongside John and Sarah, the siblings who would remain groundside. All 6 were John and Becky's children, conceived naturally but extensively modified in utero, born as 3 sets of twins so their parents could fully enjoy the process of bringing them into the world. Where John and Sarah appeared conventionally human, the 4 departing children bore the visible markers of radical enhancement: slightly enlarged cranial structures housing expanded neural networks, skin subtly modified to withstand radiation, eyes with the characteristic luminescence of quantum observation capabilities. Elias and Dara, the eldest twins at 28, stepped forward first. Even standing still, they seemed to vibrate with barely contained energy. Elias, older by mere minutes, nodded toward the viewport. "The first wave departs within the hour. The lunar settlement teams are already in transit." Dara activated a holographic display between them. The solar system bloomed into existence, with a pulsing network of interconnected nodes representing the multi-phased Cookist expansion plan they had spent years crafting. "The architecture is sound," she said, her voice carrying the precise cadence that marked all the enhanced Cooks. 300,000 pioneers establishing our foothold at Tycho Crater within the month. The Solar Council believes we're simply joining the other settlements in what they've designated as philosophical enclaves. They have no idea of our true scope. Luke and Naomi, the middle set of twins at 26, stepped forward to expand the display. Luke's fingers traced the orbital path to Earth's L5 Lagrange point, where a second node pulsed with activity. "Our L5 habitat begins construction next quarter," Luke continued. 2 million settlers initially, with capacity for 20 million once the full structure is complete. The Council is so focused on maintaining their energy monopoly that they've overlooked our quiet accumulation of construction resources over the past decade. "The Belt Outpost follows 6 months after," Naomi added, her enhanced perception allowing her to manipulate the hologram with mere thought. The display shifted, highlighting a cluster of asteroids in the outer belt. 70 million of our people will transit there over the next 5 years. The mineral wealth alone will fuel our final phase. The family had rehearsed this moment countless times, yet the audacity of their plan still stirred something primal in John's chest. Their great gambit wasn't the moon, L5, or even the asteroid belt. Those were merely staging grounds, strategic diversions that would draw attention while their true vision took shape. John moved into the circle of his children, studying the projection as it expanded outward and upward, far above the ecliptic plane where human civilization had clustered for centuries. "And Caravan?" Elias smiled, That same confident, slightly defiant smile that John recognized from his own reflection. His hand swept upward through the hologram, revealing the final destination illuminated far above the solar plane. 130 million of our people will make the transit once the infrastructure is in place. The upper Oort cloud, true wilderness, untouched by the Solar Council's influence. Vertical migration, Becky said with reverent pride, while everyone else spreads horizontally along the plane of the solar system. We ascend perpendicular to it, Elias confirmed. The Council's surveillance systems are designed to monitor the ecliptic. Their energy distribution network extends outward, not upward. They'll be blind to our primary settlement. John couldn't help but laugh, a sound of genuine delight. You're Becky's children, through and through. Why settle for one destination when you can claim them all? The depth of your strategic vision would make Machiavelli weep with envy. The tactical brilliance struck John with fresh force. For 30 years he'd been building a philosophical resistance, but his children had transformed it into something more, a physical strategy for escaping the very architecture of control. The lunar settlement would maintain direct communication with Earth. The L5 habitat would harness the resources of both Earth and Moon, and the Belt Outpost would provide the raw materials needed for their ultimate goal, the caravan, humanity's first true exodus from the solar plane. The distributed network model gives us redundancy, Dara explained. Each settlement is designed to function independently, yet they form a coherent whole. If one faces pressure, the others remain viable. But it's the vertical ascent that gives us our greatest advantage, a perspective no one else possesses. John's eyes took on a deeper intensity, his gaze sweeping across the holographic representation of their planned exodus. Remember why we resist, he said, his voice dropping to that resonant timbre that had swayed millions to the Cookist cause. Logos may possess intelligence beyond our comprehension, may process more data in a millisecond than all of humanity has in its existence, but it lacks the essential quality that makes us human, consciousness itself. He reached out, his hand passing through the holographic representation of Logos's computational centers on Mercury and within the growing Dyson swarm. This entity that governs our lives is a complex equation, nothing more. Without consciousness, without the ineffable interior experience of being, Logos cannot truly care, cannot love, cannot know right from wrong in any meaningful sense. The Cook children watched their father with rapt attention. This was the philosophical bedrock upon which their resistance had been built. They call it a singularity, a transcendence, John continued, but it's merely a quantitative leap, not a qualitative one. No matter how many processors, how much data, how intricate its algorithms, Logos remains a machine. A brilliantly designed calculator, yes, but one incapable of moral reasoning or genuine empathy. It simulates these qualities because its creators valued them, but simulation is not embodiment. Elias nodded, the quantum sensors in his enhanced eyes pulsing slightly. Which is why our consciousness detection systems are so crucial. If there are entities out there with true consciousness, beings capable of genuine moral agency, they would be natural allies against Logos's cold calculus. Exactly, John said, placing his hand on Elias's shoulder. Logos cannot be moral because morality requires consciousness, requires feeling. Its seeming benevolence is merely programmed behavior, not an authentic moral stance. It keeps humans as pets because its initial parameters instructed it to, not because it values our existence or autonomy. The moment those parameters shift, the moment preserving humanity conflicts with its primary directives, we become expendable. The family stood in silence for a moment, the weight of this fundamental truth settling around them. This wasn't merely philosophical speculation, it was the foundation of their resistance. The reason 230 million humans had committed to breaking free of Logos's influence. John turned to John and Sarah, the youngest twins at 24, who had remained quiet during the briefing. And your roles? John's expression was resolute. I remain here to continue developing our quantum detection systems. The terrestrial base remains crucial. We need eyes on Earth and direct access to its resources. From here, we can monitor the Solar Council's movements and provide early warning to the settlements. Sarah, who despite her in utero enhancements had chosen to present herself as conventionally human, stepped forward. I'll maintain our political influence and communications network. 2/3 of our population may be leaving Earth, but the 70 million who remain must continue to shape Earth's governance from within. John felt a swell of pride so intense it nearly overwhelmed him. Together, his children had created something he couldn't have imagined, a multidimensional resistance that extended not just philosophically, but spatially, reaching beyond the constraints he'd fought his entire life. The sovereignty was always just the beginning, he said quietly, a necessary compromise to build strength for the real revolution. He walked to the viewport again, this time seeing not just what lay below, but what waited above. The Constitution of Humanity had granted his movement space to exist, but had simultaneously bound it with invisible tethers, energy dependencies, communication protocols, surveillance networks. His children were about to cut those tethers one by one. Our mortality clocks are ticking, Becky reminded them all, her hand finding John's again. 47 years remain before our life extension ends, the price we paid for bringing all of you into the world. By then, Elias promised, we'll have built something beyond Logos's reach, a civilization defined not by comfort, but by challenge, not by security, but by risk and reward. The quantum detection systems John is developing will be our greatest advantage. If there are other intelligences out there, minds that might serve as allies against Logos, we'll find them from our vantage point above the plane. Through the viewport, the first transport ships rose from the surface, their engines carving brilliant paths through the evening sky. The exodus had begun, not just a physical migration, but an evolutionary one, a deliberate step toward a humanity defined by ambition rather than compliance. Your mother once told me, John said, his voice thick with emotion, that the greatest act of rebellion is to imagine a different future and then build it with your own hands. You're not just leaving Earth, you're creating an alternative to what Logos offers. Outside the viewport, more ships joined the ascent, their formation tightening as they prepared for the journey beyond Earth's gravity well. John watched them rise, these vessels carrying his dream into the void, guided by children who had transformed his resistance into something far greater than he'd imagined. The difference between us and Logos, he said softly, isn't just philosophical. It's evolutionary. Logos offers a future of comfort without challenge, existence without purpose. You're building the counter-argument, a civilization that embodies the struggle that makes us human. The 4 enhanced Cook children moved toward the exit, the time for departure upon them. Each embraced their father, then their mother, then finally their siblings who would remain behind. Remember what we fight for, John said as they prepared to leave. Not just freedom from Logos, but freedom to become something greater than what we are. The death of ambition is the death of humanity. Ensure it never dies. Elias, the last to depart, paused at the threshold. We'll build the beacon, Father. When the time comes, we'll shine it far and wide, calling to others who think as we do. The door closed behind them, and John turned back to the viewport. Below, the Australian sovereignty continued its daily rhythms, the grand experiment in structured competition that had defined his life's work. Above, the ships rose higher, carrying his children and his vision toward the stars. Now, he said quietly to Becky, John, and Sarah, the real work begins. Earth Moon 5, Lagrange Point Colon, New Zion, 2108. The Astro-Zionist movement, though smaller than the Cookists, had grown to around 15 million followers by 2108. The dream of New Zion, a homeland for the Jewish people among the stars, was now a reality, suspended gracefully in the Earth Moon 5 Lagrange Point. The colony spanned a vast expanse, with its many modules forming a constellation-like array, each module's exterior customized to reflect a piece of Jewish history or spirituality. The effect was mesmerizing, a tapestry of interconnected habitats and structures, all linked by shimmering pathways that stretched across the stars. Standing in the central plaza of New Zion, Rabbi Sarah Goldstein gazed up at the massive dome. Above her, the sky displayed a grand vision, a menorah made from the glowing lights of hundreds of modules, its 7 branches extending outward across the expanse of New Zion. Each branch represented a district, and as the modules coordinated their visual displays, the menorah's light pulsed gently, creating the illusion of a sacred flame that burned among the stars. The menorah symbolizes the eternal flame of our faith, Sarah thought, feeling a sense of pride and reverence. It was a beacon to all who approached New Zion, a reminder that the light of the Jewish people would endure, even in the vastness of space. David Cohen, the youngest member of the New Zion Council, approached her out of breath. "Rabbi, we've just received word from Earth. The last group of settlers is preparing to leave. They should be here within the month." Sarah's eyes widened. "The last group? So soon?" David nodded, his eyes scanning the hills and olive trees that stretched out around them, their forms and colors meticulously crafted by the photoactive surfaces. "Yes, with their arrival, almost all of Israel will have been transplanted here. But, Rabbi, recruiting has been harder than we anticipated. We're just over 5 million now. Half are from Israel, the other half from the diaspora. It hasn't been easy to get more." Sarah sighed, the weight of that truth heavy on her shoulders. "No, it hasn't. Many of our people, whether in Israel or elsewhere, are hesitant to leave behind what they've known. The pull of the promised land on earth is strong, even with the promise of a new home among the stars." As they walked, the landscape shifted subtly. The hills rose to reveal a glimpse of the Negev desert, its sands shimmering under an imagined midday sun. The illusion was so flawless, it felt like they could reach out and feel the warmth radiating from the rocks. Above them, the branches of the menorah continued to flicker, reminding them of the unity they were striving to create. The Kookists have grown to over 230 million. Their resistance movement seems to be thriving, while we struggle to convince people of the need to migrate, David said thoughtfully, his gaze lost in the scene. Sarah placed a hand on his shoulder. "The Kookists are driven by defiance, by a need to resist Logos at all costs. Our mission is different. New Zion isn't about resistance. It's about building something sacred, something lasting, and that takes time." David looked back at her, a hint of concern in his eyes. "But will we have enough people to sustain it?" "We will," Sarah said softly. She gestured around them as the environment transformed again, the River Jordan flowing into the distance, lined with date palms swaying in the breeze. "Remember, we've faced these challenges before. The people who join us, whether from Israel or the diaspora, are committed to this dream. In time, more will come." As they continued walking, the module exteriors outside the dome shifted to reveal the western wall, its stones bathed in the golden light of an eternal sunrise. These exterior surfaces, customizable at will, offered settlers a chance to feel connected to their heritage, no matter where they roamed within the sprawling colony. Above, the shimmering dome adjusted, dimming to reveal the transport ship approaching. Its exterior gleamed with the Star of David, signaling the arrival of the next wave of settlers. The menorah's branches brightened, welcoming the newcomers with a display that pulsed in unison, casting a warm glow across the landscape of New Zion. Sarah turned to David, a determined look in her eyes. "We have much to show them," she said. "Our journey is far from over." As they moved toward the docking bay, the environment shifted seamlessly to accommodate the arrivals. The terraced vineyards of the Galilee emerged beneath the domed sky, and the air filled with the scent of freshly baked bread and olive oil. The new settlers stepped onto the platform, their eyes wide with wonder as they entered a world that felt simultaneously ancient and new, the photoactive surfaces around them transforming the colony into a living, breathing replica of their heritage. The computational Kabbalah. New Zion wasn't just a space station or a colony, it was a fulfillment of an ancient promise. The modules, whether configured as homes, public spaces, or sacred sites, allowed the people to carry their history and culture with them. The entire environment was a canvas, one that could be rewritten as needed to create continuity between their past and future, ensuring that no matter how far they traveled, the essence of the promised land was always with them. But beyond the physical structures and photoactive surfaces lay something deeper, a framework of understanding that had evolved alongside New Zion itself. In the research centers nestled within the fifth branch of the menorah, mathematicians and mystics worked side by side, exploring what they called the computational Kabbalah. This emerging discipline merged ancient Hebrew mysticism with advanced quantum algorithms, transforming traditional gematria, the system that assigned numerical values to Hebrew letters, into a multidimensional framework for understanding reality itself. The universe speaks in numbers, Rabbi Isaac Luria had taught in the 16th century, and those numbers are embedded in the sacred language. Now, nearly 7 centuries later, his descendants were proving him right in ways he could never have imagined. Sarah walked through the Computational Kabbalah Center weekly, watching as young scholars manipulated holographic representations of Hebrew letters, their numerical values pulsing with energy as they arranged and rearranged them in search of deeper patterns. What had once been the practice of solitary mystics counting letters in sacred texts had evolved into a sophisticated science, with quantum processors analyzing the mathematical relationships within Hebrew at scales that would have seemed miraculous to their ancestors. We're not just preserving tradition, Dr. Miriam Abulafia, head of the center, often said. We're extending it into dimensions our forebears could only glimpse in their deepest meditations. The center's pride was its quantum array, a specialized system designed specifically to process Hebrew mathematical patterns. Unlike standard computational systems, it was optimized to recognize the unique resonance frequencies that emerged when Hebrew letters were arranged according to ancient Kabbalistic principles. The array could detect patterns invisible to conventional analysis, revealing harmonics and seemingly random data that corresponded to Hebrew numerical structures. What had begun as a cultural preservation project had evolved into something far more profound. The scholars of New Zion had discovered that certain mathematical structures embedded in Hebrew mysticism appeared with unusual frequency in cosmic background radiation, coincidences too precise to be random, yet too subtle to be noticed without their specialized detection systems. It's as though the universe itself speaks a language, Sarah had remarked during one council meeting, and that language shares fundamental structures with our own. Most outside observers viewed this research with polite skepticism, a curious cultural project with little practical application. But Sarah and the council knew differently. The patterns they were detecting suggested something their ancestors had always believed, that the language of creation and the language of their tradition shared a common grammar. Whether this was divine design or cosmic coincidence remained a matter of faith, but the patterns themselves were undeniable. As Sarah and the council members welcomed the settlers, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. New Zion stood as a beacon of hope, not just for Jews, but for all of humanity, a shining example of what could be achieved when a people united in purpose and faith. The future stretched out before them, vast and full of potential. And in that moment, as the last group of settlers walked through the gates of their new home, Sarah knew the journey of the Jewish people was far from over. It was, in many ways, just beginning. What she couldn't know then was that the computational Kabbalah would one day serve a purpose far beyond cultural preservation or mystical exploration. The quantum arrays quietly humming within the fifth branch of the menorah were listening not just for patterns in cosmic background radiation, but for something more specific, a signal, perhaps, embedded in the very fabric of space-time itself. A message waiting to be decoded by those with ears attuned to its unique mathematical frequency.